Okay.
Just remember to do that.
Okay, so you don't have to answer this, but just think about how have you used census data in the past, and hopefully with actually after this session, you'll be able to think about how you can use the tools to look at census data for your projects and for your work. So a little bit about us. I am Sydney Louie. I am currently a graduate student at the Library and Information Science program at University of Hawaii at Manoa. I am interning this semester with government documents under the supervision of Gwen Sinclair, who is the department chair of the government documents and maps here at UHM Library. What to expect? Why are we doing this? We're doing this because we have not conducted a workshop, a census workshop, for over 2 years, and there has been some new features and data release since then. What to expect? Well, by the end of the session, you should be able to discern data collected from the decennial census and the American Community Survey, find data in geographic areas through various levels, understand data suppression and aggregation, be able to review data from data.census.gov and census.hawaii.gov, understand how the census defines race and ethnicity, and then we can practice finding data using data.census.gov. We are primarily going to be using, for the workshop, using the LibGuides. And this LibGuides page has been posted. So you can actually just go ahead and follow me if you want to using this site, but we will also have this site available in our post session and follow up afterwards when we send you the evaluations.
So I posted the URL for the LibGuide in the chat, so you can click on it and follow along if you want to.
Okay, because I am navigating this, I'm going to actually do some stop share and share the LibGuides page that we're going to look at. Okay, so the decennial census. As part of the Constitution of the United States, the U.S. Census Bureau conducts a census every 10 years to determine the number of people living in the United States, the most recent one taking place in 2020. The data collected by the decennial census are used to determine the number of seats for each state in the U.S. House of Representatives. So the 2020 census apportionment data was just released last week on April 26. And there were significant changes that will affect the 2022 elections and the next presidential elections. Actually, I am going to pull that website up so that you can look at it. Please forgive me as I go back to my share screen so you can look at that. Okay. So over here is a historical apportionment data map, and this was just released last week. And you can see here that New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, California, they all lost seats, 1 seat in the House of Representatives. And through that also, North Carolina, Florida, Colorado, Montana, Oregon gained a seat, Texas gaining 2 seats in the House of Representatives. It's kind of a big deal with the, with the race tight as they are. This will definitely affect next year's elections in Congress. The first census took place in 1790 during the first term of George Washington, President George Washington, with Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson leading the effort. The population at the time was 3.9 million. And Congress used these results to apportion 105 seats among 15 states. You can look with this table, you can look here at the population map to show that now, as of the 2020 census, we have 331 million. If I want to check out Hawaii, I can just actually click on Hawaii state and it transitions over to Hawaii, which is now at 1.4 million. You can see here it's a 7% increase since 2010 census. And over here is because of the historical data here since 1910, you can see the growth of each decennial census that led to 2020. So some trivia. The first census was conducted in 1790 under the supervision of Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of State. Okay, I'm going to stop the share here and go back to my PowerPoint. And only 6 questions were asked in 1790. Who was the head of household? And how many persons in each household match the following descriptions? You can see here, listed here. Not the most politically correct thing. And then also asking about slaves too, back in 1790. This is, it just shows that how census questions have changed throughout the years. And we will go back into looking at the LibGuides page as we cover that. Oops. I have to get back to the LibGuides page here. Oops. Sorry, I'm having a little bit, I'm going to stop the share again and go ahead and get back to the LibGuides page through the PowerPoint. Okay. All right, back on track. So basically, the index of questions are listed here. And you can see everything back from the 1790 up until through 2010. It's good to check the questions asked when you do your research. Questions are different for each decennial census, so you may not always be able to compare the data. This year, there will be more data released from the 2020 decennial census. Next, you can expect demographics in the summer and then redistricting data by the end of the 3rd quarter. So some new features here. Quick facts. You can search for local statistics with a population of 5,000 or more. The quick facts here, for example, I can choose, let's take a look at Hawaii. And I can see the Hawaii tables data populated here in the left column compared to the United States here. I can also see this information in map function. this is fun. I can actually use this magnifying zoom in function feature to look at the geography a little bit more closely. Urban Honolulu has 345,000 people. I can also take a look and see the chart function of this. And you can see where Hawaii is compared to California, which has the largest population. And then I can look at the dashboard, which really is a combination of the table, the map, and the chart, all in one view. So with Hawaii Counts, this is the local effort for the 2020 census. And you can see here the response rate. So 63%, this is self-response rate, 63% compared to the 67% average in the US. But in any case, 99%. It's important to note that 99% of Hawaii households were counted for the 2020 census. Are there any questions so far regarding the Decennial census? You can go ahead and put them in the chat.
Douglas noted that Hawaii was first appeared in the federal census in 1900, but there are earlier censuses that were conducted by missionaries and the monarchy.
Yes. Thank you for that, Doug. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the American Community Survey. ACS is an ongoing survey that provides information on a yearly basis. The data from the survey helps determine how $675 billion in federal and state funds are distributed each year. Through ACS, we know more about jobs and occupations, educational attainment, veterans, whether people own or rent their homes, and other topics. Public officials, planners, and entrepreneurs use this information to assess the past and plan for the future, such as developing the community plan for hospitals and schools, support school lunch programs, improve emergency services, build bridges and roads, and inform businesses looking to add jobs and expand to new markets and more. So you can find some of the questionnaires here, at least from the 1996 to the present. You can also look at newly released data here in the schedule. ACS has 1-year data sets and 5-year data sets. The 2019 sets for 1 year and 5 years were released in 2020. So the 2019 data sets is what we look at for ACS, whether they're 1 year or 5-year estimates. This survey comparison table here shows the differences of how data is collected and released. Although the 1-year estimates are the most current, they also have the highest margin of error due to the smallest sample size. Data is aggregated to cover populations of over 65,000. 5-year estimates have larger sample size and smaller margin of error. You can see more data on the census tract level. And the census counts every household, so there's the smallest margin of error, but the data is also not as current. And you can see here suggestions on how to apply that data from these 3 different surveys. You may wonder why there may be lack of details from the ACS data. The Census Bureau applies restrictions called data suppression to the estimates, limiting the disclosure of information about individual respondents and reducing the number of estimates with unacceptable levels of statistical reliability. Population thresholds further limit the availability of ACS data. So for one-year estimates, which are based on a single year data, there's population threshold of 65,000 persons. In other words, the geographic area with population of less than 65,000, though you won't be able to see any data for the 1 year. So you were able to see for a lot of the neighborhoods in Honolulu, and also for the counties, you will not see the 1 year data, but most likely the 5 year data sets. So I want to just kind of show you an example and look at the island of Lanai. Which has 2,700 population. I just want to give you a heads up that CDP means census designated place. And you can see here that the data is pulled from the 5 year estimates just due to the population size. If I want to look at the 1 year estimates, I would have to actually broaden my geographic selection and choose something like Maui County, which will include the island of Maui and also Molokai, along with Lanai. So basically, aggregated data is taking geographic entities of metropolitan and micropolitan areas. Micropolitan meaning populations of 10,000 to 50,000, delineated by the U.S. Office of Management and Budget that would then apply to the standards of the Census Bureau. Data profiles here are supported by data.census.gov. As the most frequently requested economic, housing, and demographic data. Each of these 4 subject areas is a separate data profile. The data profile summarizes the data for a single geographic area, both numbers and percent, to cover the most basic data on all the topics. So we have the social characteristics here: education, marital status, relationships, fertility, grandparents, and that is seen here on this table. Economic characteristics. Including the commuting to work and occupation. Housing characteristics. And then demographic. So demographic includes sex and age and race, Hispanic origin. I want to talk to you briefly about race and ethnicity. The census questionnaire generally reflects race as a social definition and does not define race biologically, anthropologically, or genetically. So the response is entirely self-identification. The Office of Management and Budget requires 5 minimum categories: white, Black or African American, American Indian or Alaska Native, Asian, and Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. People may choose to report more than one race to indicate their racial mixture, such as American Indian and white. People who identify their origin as Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish may be of any race. So I want to take this opportunity to kind of give you a heads up that this month is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Here is a detailed table of the percentages of the population. I'm going to actually go all the way down to Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander population. Has 1.6 million, 607,000 are Native Hawaiian residents. And here's the information here, followed by Samoan and then Tongan. This is for the entire United States, so I can actually filter it by geography. I'm going to choose Hawaii. And go ahead and conduct my search there. And I can see Hawaii here. Hawaii figures here with Native Hawaiian population at 284,000. Are there any questions so far regarding American Community Survey?
Going back, Ward had a question about how did they determine that the 2020 census counted 99% of the population of Hawaii, because in Hana, where he lives, he thinks the response rate was much lower than that because of people not getting home delivery of mail. I can take a stab at that. Okay. My understanding is that the Census Bureau, sent out the mailings and waited for the responses to come back, and then they did follow-up, which was supposed to be in person, but then they kind of scaled back on that because of COVID. So I think they did a lot of telephone follow-up, but they also count people based on other information that they can get through other sources. So I'm guessing, and this is just a guess, that 99% number comes from the data that they compiled about the population from all different sources and not just from responses to the decennial census questionnaires that were sent out. Dory says, this is super helpful. Thank you. Thanks, Dory. Ward also asked, when is the block data for 2020 going to be released? And I looked on the Census Bureau website and I did not see the block data listed on their schedule. It said that there are going to be a series of releases throughout 2021 and 2022, but based on past experience, I think the block data is one of the last things that gets released, so I would not expect it for another couple of years. Nori says, I apply census tract or census block group level data. I have been downloading data from IPUMS since American Fact Finder was taken out. Are there other sources of such data? Is there a way to download such data at data.census.gov? Yeah, the last time I talked to somebody at the Census Bureau about the PUMS, they were going to reconfigure the interface for getting PUMS data, and I have not seen an announcement that there's a new interface for that. So at the present moment, I'm not aware of another way to get the PUMS data other than IPUMS, but I will do some research on that and see if I can find a better answer for you. Let's see. And then Dory asks, has the Census Bureau digitized decennial census reports that cover social characteristics prior to 2010, or whichever year it was that the Census Bureau shifted the detailed questionnaire to ACS? They have digitized most of the decennial census reports going back in time, but I think they're not 100% complete, especially for territories and possessions. So I don't think that the Hawaii data has been completely digitized. But I can also check on that and get back to you, Dory. Thanks for the question. Are there any other questions?
Okay, thanks. Very good questions. Thank you, Gwen. All right, so let's now hit the Hawaii State Data Center. The HSTC is an officially designated source of Census Bureau data for the state of Hawaii. HSTC is operated as part of the Research and Economic Analysis Division of the Hawaii State Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. So the population estimates here contain the most up-to-date Hawaii population estimates. Data is for total population, demographic components such as births, deaths, net migration, and demographic characteristics such as age, sex, race, of the 5 major race groups, that is, and Hispanic origin. Housing unit data are also released annually for Hawaii. Total population estimates may be obtained for the state, 5 counties, 2 metropolitan areas, 2 micropolitan areas, and the urban Honolulu census designated place. And here is the data, economic data warehouse that you can look at for this information. Okay. For the census data highlights, the U.S. Census Bureau released its 2015 to 2019 American Community Survey 5-year estimates on December 10th, 2020. The Census Bureau conducted interviews with 8.7% of Hawaii's population between 2015 to 2019 period. A total of 46,000 households in Hawaii were surveyed with an average about 9,300 households per year. So the information is here in this report. And you can look at the information that, that DBED put out regarding median household income of the counties, unemployment, etc. Owner occupancy. The handy report there. The ACS 5-year estimates map. DBID is released an interactive map of the latest American Community Survey 5-year data series. So this map includes selected characteristics of Hawaii's population for the following geographies: the census tracts, state senates, house districts, county, and state. This is actually really neat tool because if I want to just go further, I can look at the census tracts here. And note that census tracts are defined as small, relatively permanent statistical subdivision of a county or equivalent entity. So normally there are about 4,000 or 5,000 of the census tract. So this is Lower Pava'a. I can take a look here at Waikiki Beach, the population, the age, the race, housing, households, rent at 1,300, and compare Waikiki to someplace like Ala Moana area, which has 7,000 population. And median rent at 1,900, a little bit higher. Just remember that this is actually data from 2015 to 2019 ECS data, so it's not reflected upon anything that's happening since then, since the pandemic. It's a neat little tool. So that's the census tracts. I can look at it by Senate districts or House districts. The House district numbers are here. The county level, which is here, this I can look at Honolulu County or Maui County. It's actually, even though I chose Molokai, it's pulling Maui County information and then the entire state. Very handy tool. Are there any questions regarding Hawaii State Data Center? Okay. So let's actually now hit the other resources. Just very handy tools for those who can need to look at more information. This is interactive mapping tools available. So we have the census flow mappers, the US Census small area income and poverty estimates. Tiger line shapefiles are for the selected geographic and cartographic information. Very specialized information here, but more tools that you can use that are interactive. And then we also have free training resources here. The Census Bureau has a huge library for the Census Academy, looking at by topics and with video. And there are courses that you can take along with webinars. FDLP Academy, that's the Federal Depository Library Program, has these training programs. North Carolina has the Help I'm an Accidental Government Information Librarian webinars. And then the State Data Center Clearinghouse have these webinars as well too. So they're all linked here for these free training resources. All right, and then I'm just gonna pause here for if you have any more questions before we hit our exercises. Are we good?
I don't see any further questions.
Okay, so I'm gonna now go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, we did the trivia. So we're just going to take the rest of the time to just demonstrate how to create neighborhoods using tracks, the census tracks on data.census.gov. And then if we have some time, we'll also try to look at data for multiple topics. So I'm going to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Gwen.
Oh, and you're welcome to open up data.census.gov and follow along yourself if you want to, or you can just sit back and watch if you would like to do that. And this is being recorded, so if you want to watch the webinar over again and try the exercises at a later time, you can do that too.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I am going to, okay, actually, let me go ahead and share the screen again. We're going to look at data.census.gov. And the first exercise we're going to do is just to select data by using the census tracks. So I'm going to go ahead and start looking at Honolulu. And I'm going to choose Urban Honolulu CDP. Urban Honolulu has 345,000 total population. But I actually want to look at the census tracks. So what I'm going to do is click onto Maps. And you see Urban Honolulu also kind of highlighted here. I'm just going to click onto this topic on the left, the ECS demographic and housing estimates. Also notice here that I'm using the 1-year estimates data profiles. Because I want to look at a specific neighborhood, I'm going to change my settings, so geographies from place, from the census, so CDP, census designated place, to census tract. And that's located right here, census tract. And then it just kind of, so you can see that the numbers are assigned, and this is very similar to the one that we saw for the state of Hawaii. But what I can do here for data.census.gov is actually I can I select my neighborhoods and I can select more than one tract. And also notice that I need to change it to 5-year estimates data because the neighborhoods that I'm choosing will not have a population of 65,000 or more. So I'm going to choose a 5-year estimate data profiles instead. I am going to look at UH first. So let's just say that, oops, let's just say that I am, since I am a student at UH, I am going to select here, just select the UH census data tract, which is 27.01. But I am also interested in maybe looking at the neighborhood and maybe Malka of H1 Freeway. So what I can do is click onto select, and then just choose, just drag and choose the neighborhood. So I'm going to choose this. I'm going to also choose the valley a little bit more. That's about it. I'm going to choose then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 census tracts. And then I can see that, with the color, you can see the legend here that there is data. And I can then just create a table. So the table will give me all this information here. Notice here that the tables are by census tract and they're not combined. That is because these tables are pre-tabulated. And if I want to total the numbers, I would be creating a new table, which the census cannot do it on the fly. So the best way to do this would be to just download it. I can actually download by Excel or CSV, and I can just go ahead and export it. And then I can just then use the Excel formulas to total the numbers. So for my 6 chosen census tracts. Another one that I was thinking about was that I live in the McCully neighborhood, and recently there is bike lanes being developed in my neighborhood, and also sidewalks. And the idea is to help service the kupuna so that they can actually make use of that bike lanes, which currently we have no sidewalks in that area. So I'm going to just go ahead, and choose, again, Urban Honolulu CDP. I'm going to click onto Maps. Instead of going through the census tract, though, I'm going to actually choose my congressional district, not congressional, excuse me, my state legislative district. So state legislative district upper is Senate. This is lower is House. And my House district is 26. So I'm going to actually choose 26 here. This is kind of wonky. These numbers are just crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and use the 5-year estimates data profiles, and you can see this. It's a little bit more easier to look at. And then I'm just going to create a table from there. So if I want to take a look at 65 years and over for my district, which is McCully district, which is District 26, I can see that 6,000 people are over 65 years and over. Kind of a small percentage, but maybe a good pilot program, which is what it's happening to build the bike lanes for the kupuna. Well, it's not bike lanes, but it's really sidewalk also for kupuna out of the 69,000 in the Honolulu CDP. Okay, so that is kind of a brief look at just selecting data using census.data.gov or data.census.gov. We have some time, so let's actually look at perhaps looking at finding data from multiple topics. The best way to do it is to go to advanced search, and here are these filters. So I'm going to look at topics. I am going to choose race and ethnicity, considering that we are in Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander month. When you see these boxes here, that's kind of the end. But I can actually go further by clicking on to the non-boxed and look at more details. So I can see here detailed Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander alone, or in any combination, or just alone, but I'm actually going to choose this. And I can choose these, any one of these other categories here. I'm going to actually look at the characteristics of the COFA population. So that's the Complex of Free Association. So that would be Micronesian, Marshallese, and Palau. I'm going to go ahead and do my search. You can look at the tables here, and you can see here we have here at United States. So I'm going to actually filter it and look at my map. So I'm going to look at the state and look at it by Hawaii and choose Hawaii. I'm going to customize it then and look at the table there. So now I see Hawaii in terms of the populations of Micronesian, Marshallese, and Palauan. And here are the characteristics here, the topics. So that's basically looking at data in more than one topic and kind of narrowing it down your search. I can also just kind of look at this and see other parts of the data, such as income and poverty, health, housing, etc., with this particular set of demographics. Are there any questions there? It's just so much that you can do to play around with it. And if you spend a lot of time like I did in terms of looking at, data, you can just go on and on. It's a nice deep black hole there, rabbit hole, but it's just fun to look at this information. And also be able to use this information, reference it when you write your grants or proposals, project proposals, or anything that that you're working on for your job.
I'm not seeing any questions yet, but I'll just take this opportunity to say that if you do have questions about census data, we here at the library are here to help you. If we don't know the answer ourselves, we will reach out to the State Data Center or to the Census Bureau and ask the experts there what the answer to your question is. In my experience, both of those groups are very responsive and helpful. So there are a lot of different ways to get help finding census data. And we are always happy to help you or any other people with whom you work if you're having trouble finding census data.
Okay, so with that note, just to recap what we've covered today. We covered the types of data collected for the decennial census, the American Community Survey, and why. We also looked at data in the geography, by geography, and also find out when data is released. We also discussed briefly about data suppression and aggregation and population definitions such as race and ethnicity, and how we have search on data.census.gov and also with census.hawaii.gov. Okay, thank you very much.
And we'd like to thank you for attending. We will be sending out a link to the recording when it is available, as well as the link to the LibGuide once again and an evaluation. And if you have additional questions that crop up after the webinar or 2 years from now, we hope that you'll let us know and we can help you with those. So thank you all very much.